Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, my name is Minh and I'm your host from the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today we have our special guest speaker who I've been waiting to bring on board for the last 4 or 5 months, and it is Mr. Brad Fuller. Brad, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Minh.
Mate, I've invited you along today to do a part 2 follow-up on my episode that I did with Debbie, episode 194, where we spoke about the dual key robust house. I did another follow-up, part 1, with answering to Bruce Bromley's query that he sent to me. And I'd like to get another opinion. And Brad and I sat down on about a week and a half ago in Brisbane to go through this robust dual key design. And Brad, can I get your thoughts on this topic that we've been covering since the NDIS review about IL being potentially removed and what are the solutions? What are your thoughts on the whole topic overall of IL being removed?
Look, well, for all of us, we all know that the recommendations that have been made by that Royal Commission report are only recommendations. That's the first thing. However, some of them are serious recommendations. You know, there's over 100, nearly 130, I think, recommendations. 29 of those will require legislative changes. And of course, the big one that everyone's talking about is the legislative change that would be needed to remove the IL category. However, at this stage, it does say 5-year transition, but we're not sure what that actually means because there's no clarity around that. It also says that, hints that, there's going to be some discussion on this topic for possibly 12 months, but we don't have clarity on that either. However, if we just go off the recommendations and what we know from governments in past, things don't move very quickly. So there's a lot of legislative changes to be made, which will mean a lot of internal changes to government to bring this through. I have listened to Bill Shorten's address, though, when he did the press club address. I tried to listen to his words and listen for something that said these changes will take 5 years. We're going to talk about it for another year. I couldn't find any of that in his speech. So part of me says maybe this is going to be a quicker implementation than we thought. But again, I have no clarity, and that's my personal opinion. But the biggest issue I see is exactly that we don't have commentary from the government. There's a lot of questions being raised. I've been looking on the net. I've listened to the interviews from people. There are solicitors giving opinions on the net. And the one thing nobody can say with certainty is these implementations will not occur, or what's been asked for change will occur. And right there, we are all in limbo land, men.
Sure. And thanks for your feedback. Now, this episode is all about the follow-up to the robust dual key design we spoke about the last 2 episodes on this matter. Brad, can I get your feedback about the challenges of a robust house, restricted practices, floor plan layout requirements, and all that kind of stuff? Because my opinion in the last 2 episodes on this matter was about being an IL design house. IL. But we sort of turned on to a whole different topic, being robust. What is robust, Brad? And what is restricted practices? What is it?
Look, robust is a category all on its own, and it requires special compliances to build. Look, in our experiences, we have found it, we've never seen 2 compatible, robust people be able to live in the same space together. Now, look, I'm sure that out there it's possible, but we've had a long history in disability and we have not seen that yet. In the houses that we've seen, we've unfortunately have seen a lot of robust houses that are built 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom robust, some with a breakout room, some without. Now, on the calculator, you can go and actually choose a 2-bedroom robust house or a 3-bedroom robust house or even a 4-bedroom robust house. But here's the issue. I think that originally, a lot of the people that were promoting these properties when HPS funding was around, at a base price across Australia, around $50,000, Robust was funded at 65. So unfortunately, with very poor advice, people were advised to go and build 2 or 3 bedroom Robust houses on a story that they would achieve 3 times $65,000 more than what they would get if they had HPS funded people in their house. Now, I've got a pretty personal opinion about that. That was just, looking for a commission on a build, an easy sale. It had no relevance to, looking after participants or being participant first, because everybody was very clear in the disability world that Robust behaviours were literally not compatible to live with anyone else. So that story that were told to so many investors was just unscrupulous. And now all these people have had Robust houses, and when they've struck SDA providers like us, we've had to tell them that, look, we can't say it's impossible to have 2 or 3 in a Robust house. We just have not seen it yet, and we've been in it a very long time.
But I think the word is improbable. So it's not impossible, but improbable.
Correct. And just by the nature of the behaviour, the category is called Robust, and it's called that for a reason. And they need help and support to have a stable environment, a safe environment. And of course, it means also having a safe environment for anybody that they were living with, which is one of the reasons compatibility is an issue. Now, I know that some people have built what we call hybrid models, where they've said, an IL house can be registered as a Robust house. But again, there's a little bit of myth involved in that too. If you build a Robust house, it doesn't come automatically with improved livability certification. And if you build an improved livability house, it doesn't come automatically with Robust certification, obviously.
I'll make a correction there, Brad. You meant to say HPS house with Robust.
Well,
because you don't build an IL house with Robust features.
Correct.
The word hybrid means HPS house hybrid, which means HPS, FA, Robust, or IL. That's what you mean, right?
No, but some people are just purely building IL, and I was probably hinting at the design that you and I were talking about, which was the point of this cast. But yes, houses that are HPS, just for everybody's sake out there, they are automatically downwards compatible to fully accessible and improved livability. You can build a house that's simply certified for fully accessible, which would be downwards compatible to improved livability, but none of those would be automatically compatible with Robust, because there's hundreds of compliance features. Also, the type of walls and the structural integrity of the walls, you need to have a different kind of gyprock or plaster basic level there.
But a Robust house, again, can allow for IL participants coming in.
True, but you can't get automatic certification for IL if you build Robust. You have to make some very small modifications and get the house then certified, because not all of the functionality of that house suits IL. So there is a bit of a myth out there that if I build a Robust house, I'll get 2 certifications, one for Robust and one for IL. That is not true. You would then have to modify the Robust house and then get the NDIS assessor to come and reassess for improved livability. And they are only small modifications, but still, there is a bit of a myth that you automatically get both.
Okay, great. Now, the reason why we're doing this podcast is about this dual key Robust topic I discussed last episode 196, whenever it was.
It's the one that you and I looked at the plans.
Yes.
That day.
Now, since then, you've now highlighted to me, Brad, that you and Bruce have brought up the word restrictive practices. Can we talk about that, please? What does that mean?
Sure. Well, when Bruce made his comments, I was certainly in agreement with that. There is, the moment you close a door, and no matter if the door is closed and you have to open it as a carer to let someone through and then close it again, and the same on the other side of that house where there would have been 2 doors, that actually restricts those tenants from accessing the kitchen. The moment we do that, even if it's like 1% of the time, we enter what's called a restrictive practices world. And we'd have to get special approval from a mediator to allow that to happen. And I'm not sure we would get that approved. So that's my point about that house. And again, we are trying to make a home that fits a financial model, maybe not fits what's best purpose for a participant.
Okay, great. So I stuffed up. I made a mistake. I'll own it. No worries. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not perfect, but I'm almost. I might have get it.
It's not that you stuffed up. I mean, it was you were trying to solve a problem, which was the IL hybrid robust thing. But I think, as I said to you once before, I hear of hybrid all the time, where people are trying to build a robust category and a HPS or an IL category in the same house. But to me, it's a bit like, when people invented the car that would go in the water. You could drive the car down and you'd go. Yes, did it work in water? It did. Does it work on land? Yes, it does. But it didn't really make fantastic sales because it never did either of those jobs as best as it could do. A boat enthusiast would never buy that car for a boat. A car enthusiast would never buy that car for a car. And so it is to me, and it's my personal opinion, that hybrid model, there's a cosmetic appeal that you need to have a quality of life in a house. No different to you or I. If we go into a house, we like the appeal of the way it looks. A robust house, if you're not a robust participant, has lots of things in that house that cosmetically are unappealing. Some robust houses have key locks on every single drawer and every single cupboard door. Mostly they have a door that prevents the kitchen being accessed because, even as Bruce Bromley says, lots of things can be weaponized in the kitchen. And of course, with a door closed and a kitchen isolated, that is not really a cosmetic appealing design or layout for someone who does not require that, or the category doesn't require it. So there's always a compromise when we try for a hybrid model. And again, I think it's more of a financial equation that people are looking there for a backup. You can build an IL house and a robust, you can modify it a little bit and have a backup plan, if you like, in terms of financials, that if there is no IL, you could put a robust person into that house with a modification.
Okay, so we're back on track now to IL. We're talking about IL because the government is saying we're looking at scrapping IL, correct, Brad?
That is the recommendation at 9.4 in the annexures, yeah.
Sure. Therefore, if this dual key design ain't going to work, I think to answer the questions that everyone's asking out there, which is, I've already bought a block, I was going to build an IL on it, I can't reverse the transaction now, what do I do? I think the answer is change the specifications to be robust category, because the IL and robust design houses do fit on smaller blocks, being 10 and 12.5 metre wide frontages. The HPS and FA blocks require wider frontages because of the wheelchair accessibility and design of the houses. So if you are an investor who's just bought a block recently or about to settle on a block soon as an IL, maybe the solution, Brad, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is either go through with it as IL or contact your builder and upgrade it to a robust specification. Do you agree or disagree, Brad?
Well, I have had a lot of calls. My phone has literally been in meltdown since that report came out, of a lot of people seeking advice. And the biggest issue for us is it's nearly impossible for us to give the clarity that everyone's looking for.
But Brad, if they're stuck in the transaction, they can't get out of it.
Okay, so two things I've advised on that. If you can, it's very difficult to make an $800,000 bet that the government will or won't bring in those recommendations. But it's highly likely if they do follow through, you've got 5 years. What we don't know with IL is if we do put an IL person in the house, and by the way, it's been very clear in that report that if you have an IL tenant, the government will continue to fund the SDA for that tenant. Now, one of the big questions I've got is what happens in 3 years, 5 years' time when that tenant may leave the house for various reasons? How do we replace that tenant for that owner or give that tenant a house if there is no IL category anymore to fund? But the report also did hint, just on a sideline, that there would be a new category that might replace IL, but the news is very vague on that as well.
There's no SDA funding for combination for that new category, no?
No, there was a hint, but it is absolutely vague about what we're doing. So if you're caught in that, I've said to people, look, if you're financially able, upgrade to HPS.
If the block is too thin, you can't do HPS?
Right. That's my second opinion. So one of the issues we've struck already is the block of land is too small to do that. So that would leave you with either taking a chance and going forward with IL and hoping the recommendations don't come in, or at least knowing that you would get 5 years and then you could rent to the normal market. Or, as you suggested, you could spend less money than what a HPS renovation is and upgrade to a robust house. And then if IL did fail, we could certainly place a robust tenant in that house, but there would only be one.
So what Brad just spoke about is the cost there. So the cost from the IL to a HPS upgrade is about 100 to 130 grand, I think, across Australia. But the cost to go from IL to robust is probably 50 or 60 grand only. So if you can afford to go, if your block dimensions allow you to, and you can afford to go HPS, then go for it. Only if there's demand for HPS in the area, right, Brad?
Correct.
Secondly, if you can't afford the 130 grand upgrade, and the block doesn't allow you to build HPS or FA on the block, consider your 50, 60 grand robust upgrade, correct?
No, that seems a logical call.
And if you can't do that, can't afford it, stick with the IL all the way. If you can't get out of it, that's all.
Yeah, look, I've got one gentleman who's going to sell his land because since he bought the land and building approvals have taken like nearly 4 or 5 months, his land has gone up $40,000. So he's also thinking, well, I might sell the land and at least I will be even, and then look around for a HPS because that particular block can't take a HPS build. But it could do a robust, but he didn't want to build a robust home.
Correct.
But look, it's definitely an option.
The basis of all this, Brad, is ensure that you're building the right product in the right area.
As
right
always.
Right data.
Location design, that's been my mantra since the start of our SDA journey. Right location, right design, make the house as desirable as possible so a participant will choose yours above all others. And that has been the success story of what we've done. So our participants are choosing the houses based on those designer locations. I mean, we would never tell an investor to build a house in an area where there was no participant demand. I mean, I had a terrible call recently over Christmas from a gentleman who had listened one of those big Facebook ads, you know, videos and presentations. He got caught up in the routine of that, and he went right through, and they actually told him that the NDIA had participants waiting to put in his house, and they encouraged him to build a 4-bedroom robust house plus an OOA. And
they being the real estate agent.
Yes, the promoters of the investment and the property. And he now knows that was pretty poor advice based on the fact that it's hard to get compatibility with one other person, let alone 3 other people and in 4 robust people in the same house. And as well as that, it's 35 minutes west of Toowoomba. So it's even in an area, in a rural area, where the chances of him having tenancy is extremely low.
Are you serious? 35 minutes west of Toowoomba? That makes it 2 hours west of Brisbane. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, Toowoomba is a big centre, though. It services the whole Darling Downs. It has its own infrastructure. Like, to be fair, it's got 5 hospitals. They're building a brand new one at Bailey Henderson. It's a big hospital. And it does service a vast area out there. But it's also far enough away from Brisbane that it can't lean on Brisbane's infrastructure. And there are many cities like Toowoomba throughout Australia. You know, you could say Ballarat or Bendigo in Victoria might be one of those where it's maybe too far to lean on the city infrastructure, so it's developed its own. It has its own hospitals, its own disability service centres, its own medical centres, its own big shopping centres. So it wasn't that, but the fact that it was 4 robust bedrooms plus OOA, and it was too far from any hospital for special disability services. I mean, which is one of the other things I see out there, which is a myth. A lot of people are just saying, go build a house near a hospital. But guess what? If that hospital doesn't have the special disability services that are required, that hospital is not the one they're going to need to travel to. They're going to need to travel to the next bigger hospital, which could be 30 or 40 minutes away. And this is one of the other things that we look at as an SDA provider, who is making sure that we have this balance between getting it right for participants and making sure that investors are really, really well informed about getting it right for the participants, to stop thinking about the money, make the house desirable in the right area, follow our data, and therefore the byproduct of that is a successful investment, and everybody wins.
Okay, so in summary of everything, all this podcast topic here, if you can get out of IEL package you have there and you're uncomfortable, then pull out if you can. Otherwise, go through with it or build a HPS house or a robust house. So I think in hindsight, Brad, I'll scrap the dual key robust design house and just talk to investors. If you can't afford HPS, simply build a robust house. The robust house will be, and make sure the robust house features, design features, is also covering the IL requirements.
Sure, but there's one caveat on that.
Yes.
We need to understand the demand for robust in that area where the house is.
Exactly.
Well, because robust at the moment is, I think on the latest NDIS report, I think robust was 8%, don't quote me exactly, but 8% of all people funded were robust. But it is a category we've seen that is quite in high need because people have not been building them over the years. And so there are quite a few people with robust, waiting for somebody to help us build a house where we can give them that quality of life.
Sure. So the play here, everyone listening, is in a lot of the IL emergence being, the IL topic being potentially removed the next 3, 4, 5 years from the NDIA, consider building a robust house which covers robust and IL participants and from a design point of view, and also has a high demand for robust and IL demand in the area, all right? Then proceed with that transaction and assume that you're getting 1, 2, or 3 participants for IL in this house. In a few years' time, if and when IL is removed from the NDIS as a SDA category, your fallback position is a robust house. The robust house being a 1-tenant, maybe a 2-tenant robust house, maybe, but improbable, obviously. But you know what? In 4 or 5 years' time, you would have collected 150 grand rent if it's 2 IL participants in the house, made back your money, and your fallback position is 1 robust participant in a few years' time. And that's your long-term play there. I think that is the way to go for the confused investors who don't know what to do.
Well, we're all confused because again, I come back to the fact that what do? When you build the house and the government does not uphold these recommendations, what the government does is doesn't do them at all. And then we've caused disruption in the marketplace for no reason. If we do say to people, cancel your IL build and it doesn't go ahead or they do implement them, we really can't win either way. So that's why I say the problem here is lack of clarity with what the government has done. And that's my greatest wish would be to someone come from the government as a spokesperson and give clarity to those big questions, because a lot of investors, on the basis that the government incentivized recently in the last 5-year review, incentivized investors to go and put more houses on the ground to help participants, they, in a lot of ways, have pulled the rug out on that for the moment, or at least caused a lot of confusion. So it would be great. My greatest plea here would be for someone from government to come and speak out about getting some clarity on what they really are going to do about these recommendations, and do it quickly, because I don't think everyone wants to wait a year, because in a year's time, a lot of IL houses will be built and investors have a right to know, I think, that the $800,000 to $1 million that they are spending, sometimes from their superannuation funds, that it's going to be helping their families, because a lot of people are doing this investment, yes, to help participants, but also to help their families and their future. So clarity, that's what I'd like to see, Minh. If you can ring someone in the government, that'd be great.
I'll do my best, but they won't answer my calls. I think the most important thing on this IL topic really is the fact that the IL category, which exists right now in its current form, is the plug-in stopgap for those empty HPS houses, rooms. Because 3 years ago, Brad, you remember this, everyone's chasing HPS participants. Everyone was. And there was lack of HPS participants. But since the NDIS price review came out in July 1, 2023, people realized you can plug the IL participant into those empty rooms to make up for that missing income for the apartments and those houses. So really the future of IL is really a boon for the SDA investors. If they still exist, it continues on. So investors can get the SDA providers to plug them into these empty HPS rooms, because otherwise we'll only have 1-tenant HPSs in those 4-bedroom houses, which is we're seeing a lot of at the moment.
Well, look, there's also what people need to understand is also about the way the SIL funding works, because a lot of their funding is what we'd call 3-on-1, one carer funded to 3 participants. Now, what happens if you've got HPS participants that are funded 3-on-1 and you've only got a 2-bedroom house? A SIL provider can't put 2 people in there because they need 3. So a lot of people at the moment we're seeing that anybody with a 3-bedroom house, and I have encouraged people in the light of this report to, if they can, build a 3-bedroom home, HPS, because of this new possibility of the way things are funding more and more.
Brad, I spoke to you 2 weeks ago, and you told me, I think it was you told me, that Brendan told you that with the new way the NDIS 2.0 is being rebooted, it gives more control back to participants to use their funding how they see fit.
Yeah, look, there's a hint of that in...
And if that's true, it removes the whole 3-to-1, 2-to-1 debate then, doesn't it?
Well, no, because their supports have to be funded. So a SIL provider still needs to be funded to carry out that work. And if the government's saying we're only going to fund 1 carer to 3, therefore that is the funding they'll be giving to the participants, that could be an issue. And again, there's not much clarity on that, because we can have people that are 2-on-1 funded, 1 carer to 2, perfect for a 2-bedroom house, and that is a higher level of funding, as we all know now. And in some ways, a lot of people thought the government was incentivizing them to go and build more 2-bedroom houses because that was, at a base funding level, was $90,000 per participant, whereas 3-to-1 was $70,000 in as a base price. It's a little bit more in different states, of course.
Sure. Well, Brad, I think that wraps up our podcast of what is happening to IL. I look forward to interviewing again soon in our next episode about your impressions of NDIS 2.0 reboot as well. Any final words of advice from you to anyone listening who is in the middle of an IL build or about to settle the IL land that they've purchased recently? Because there's been a flow of activity the last 5 months of investors coming into the IL investor market.
Correct. Well, the government incentivized everyone to do so. But again, if we do the right thing and make sure we are participant-led, participant first, get the house and location right for a participant, that's okay. One of the issues for going forward, if the recommendations are up, is that if we do lose the IL category, we then don't have that ability in a HPS house. It will have to be HPS or fully accessible tenants in there. And therefore, we don't have that possibility of that sort of backup of having a house for an improvability person. You know, if part of me says that's a big ask of the government, there is a lot of improvability people that need housing. And to just kind of say we're cutting the category, there's no clarity on what are we going to do with all the improvability people that were going into the houses. The government had said that they wanted smaller numbers in houses. The group homes were being phased out, and therefore the 3-bedroom and even the 2-bedroom was going to be the new way forward. But now...
Well, apparently the federal government wants the states and territories to do refurbs on their legacy group homes.
Well, that's also another hint, which goes completely against what the NDIS was born with. I mean, housing, a human rights issue for everybody. That was what the core element, and of course the other one being choice and control for participants. And, you know, that certainly needs an upgrade. You know, we need true choice and control.
Exactly. Well, Brad, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you soon in the future.
All right. Thanks, Vinny.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.